You're watching Your Story right here on the SABC News channel. Thank you for joining us for our midweek edition. Well, as the globe marks World Breastfeeding Week this year, focus falls on the benefits of exclusive breastfeeding. Stats SA says this has increased by 7% across South Africa, and 39% of the babies under 6 months old are now exclusively breastfed. But public breastfeeding is still considered very much taboo. Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi has constantly reiterated that breastfeeding remains the most important intervention any mother can give to their newborn baby. Well, Stasha Jordan is the Executive Director at the South African Breastmilk Reserve, and she joins us on the desk now. Good afternoon, Stasha, and thank you so much for coming through to the SABC News desk.
Good afternoon.
Stasha, Foundation of Life, the theme for 2018. Tell us why breastfeeding is so crucial, so important during early childhood development as a cornerstone.
Well, first and foremost, breastfeeding offers immunity to the child for the first 6 months of life. Statistics show that children that are not breastfed have far lesser likelihood of thriving, particularly in resource-constrained environments. So the focus this year is breastfeeding, the foundation of life, to alleviate malnutrition and poverty, to empower families by reducing the burden of cost in infant feeding, and by strengthening, obviously, the mother and child bond as well as the health of the infant.
Earlier on, we were running a story right here on SABC News where rooms for breastfeeding moms and nappy changes were opened at a taxi rank in one of our major cities. It's a win, but the fight there to winning this battle has been a long one.
Well, I think the focus primarily by providing breastfeeding facilities and by making breastfeeding rooms available in the workplace is that we are creating a work environment that is enabling for women to breastfeed. In fact, today we opened at the Department of Health in Limpopo a breastfeeding room for working mothers. So the focus is really to empower and strengthen breastfeeding in the workplace, because we have to imagine that not all women can afford to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months, because many of us have to return to work and have work commitments. So when we say the foundation of life, we also say that the workplace, like the family, is the foundation of life, and it has to empower women. So like the taxi rank, like the offices, like the Department of Health that is opening breastfeeding rooms, we are creating a society and an environment that is enabling of breastfeeding.
What does legislation in South Africa say right now in terms of breastfeeding in public places and in the workplace? And are you getting enough corporate support to that end?
Absolutely. I mean, the legislation currently provides that breastfeeding in South Africa is protected, promoted and supported. And by law, women are allowed to breastfeed anywhere, anytime. We have seen a lot of corporate movement in this direction, where Spur, for instance, has released a breastfeeding policy in support of breastfeeding women. Edgar's has released a public apology to a mother that was humiliated on account of breastfeeding. So I can honestly say that yes, we are definitely seeing a lot of momentum and a lot of impetus behind the breastfeeding initiative and behind the normalization of breastfeeding.
I'm a mother of a premature infant who's now 15 years old, who was born severely premature. So I can, and I exclusively breastfed for quite a few months. So I can attest to the invaluable benefits to the future well-being and health of an infant who is breastfed. But what is the level of consciousness out there? How are we doing in increasing awareness of new mothers to the benefits of breastfeeding at this point?
Well, your situation is very particular because you're a mom of a premature baby, and it is really in the ambit of prematurity that we realize the life-saving value that breastfeeding brings to a child. So that it's evident, and therefore you're sensitized. We're trying to sensitize mothers to understanding that breastfeeding is a foundation. It's really
the very best thing you could do for your child.
Absolutely, yes. But not only from a nutritional point of view, also from a psychosocial point of view, also for you as a mother, as a parent, and also for you on a health level, because there's increasing research evidence that shows that women are less susceptible to inflammation when they breastfeed.
Very quickly, can you just take us through some of the barriers to exclusive breastfeeding, and why do we see such a marked decline in the first 6 months after birth, or after the first 6 months?
We've seen a marked incline, as you pointed out in your opening statement, where we have seen a 5-fold increase in breastfeeding rates up to 3 months. But then what happens? Mothers go back to work.
Yes.
So the legislation doesn't really provide for women to receive full maternity payouts, and very few employers support women in the workplace by paying maternity leave. So it is actually something about economic viability, about having to be a viable member of the economy. You know, it's a very, very multi-layered dynamic, socially speaking, and particularly pertaining to the workplace.
I want you to tell us just a little bit about the South African Breastmilk Reserve. What exactly is it you do, and how can members of the public get a hold of you?
Well, we are a human milk banking organization, fundamentally a charitable organization. We are a tissue bank, and we collect donated breast milk specifically for micro-premature babies that are very low birth weights and at high risk of mortality. So that is our priority. Parents and mothers that are breastfeeding can donate by reaching us on our website, which is www.sabr.org.za, and they can sign up online.
Thank you, Stasha Jordan, for your time on the SABC News Desk. Stasha is the Executive Director at the South African Breastmilk Reserve.